Welcome to the show. It's Ivy Nation Sports Talk. We're up and we are rolling. He's Vince D'Addario drinking his Mountain Dew. I'm Sean Stiers. Hope you're having a good day today. It's been a good day for Notre Dame so far.
It's been a great day for Notre Dame. Pulling in a second top 10 running back in the class of 26. I'd say that qualifies as a great day. So good for them.
I would say you're right.
Yeah.
It's Mailbag Day, so get those questions in. It looks like
we got a couple.
DK says he doesn't want to speculate, but Salty's been locked in his room since Brian posted his Great House article.
There's a lot of different directions we could go with that. I'm just going to let it lie.
I know. Exactly.
Probably the
looks like Salty's taking the day off, though. Usually we drop in by now, and he's mail bombed us, and he's got our mailbag full of questions. So there's plenty of opportunities to get in your own mailbag questions on today's show, and go ahead and smack that like button while you're at it.
Could be a short show.
Jump in. I know
at this point. So, we'll see. We'll see.
Let's just start with Andre's comment. He didn't say his name, but he said the rich got richer today with another great prospect coming to Notre Dame, another quality player to add to an outstanding running back room. And of course, he's talking about Jonaz Walton, 5'10". I know he's north of 200 pounds. I don't know his exact weight, but another pretty put together dude that they're pulling out of high school here, Vince.
Just one of those kind of, and I say short, but 5'10" is taller than both of us. But he's a shorter guy, thick lower half, has that breakaway speed. He's got that one cut and go kind of deal going. And this is an elite back. Notre Dame, you're right. The rich get richer. That room is unbelievable. They need to spread the wealth a little bit, because the wealth of the running back room is something else. And in this world of NIL and the transfer portal and all that, you're like, man, I hope they can keep all of these guys in the stable. And that's why you have to continue to recruit these guys, even though they're committed. You got to recruit them through signing day, and then you got to recruit them while they're on your roster too. So it's going to be a long and winding road, as the Beatles would say. But at the same time, this is a good day for Notre Dame, no doubt about it. This kid's elite.
No, absolutely. And when you look at the talent they continue to stack in this room now, it is just nuts, because going back since Marcus Freeman became the head coach, they got Jadarian Price and Jabron Payne in the 2022 class. They got Jeremiah Love the next year. And then the 24 class, Aeneas Williams and Kedron Young, Nolan James, current freshman right now in the 25 class. And now I would think that they'll stop with these two running backs with Javian Osborne and Jonaz Walton. But just look at that freaking room full of talent that they've got there, man. That is they just keep stacking it back to back to back. And what what I love about Osborne and Walton, watching both of them, the speed is one thing, but again, these are two put together, running backs going into their senior seasons of high school. They're both over 200 pounds.
Yeah.
They're built. They've got these solid, durable lower halves already. It's not like you're looking at them going, man, they need to add another, 10 to 15 pounds of muscle before they can be college ready. They look, watching them on film, the way they run through contact and run away from guys, they look like they're just put together and ready to go right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's an exciting room, man. And if Marcus Freeman wants to be, dominate at the line of scrimmage and kind of be a run first team, this is how you do it. Offensive linemen and running backs, let's go. No problem there.
Not at all. Not at all. Mark wants to know why Northwestern isn't better at college football. He says, is it simply the Stanford approach? Couldn't they leverage the big city lifestyle as one of the few Power Four, not in a small college town? Oh, let's be real. Stanford only became they've had very small windows. When Bill Walsh was there back, what was that, late 80s, decades ago, basically. And obviously the Harbaugh into Shaw window, Harbaugh started it. Shaw took the handoff and kept it running, honestly, for longer than I thought he would.
Me too.
But
it evolved
on the downward slide.
Yeah, it definitely evolved. Stanford, Notre Dame, Northwestern, they're all very high academic schools, obviously, right? Same with like a Vanderbilt, that kind of a deal. It is not easy to get into Northwestern. Okay. Now, they are building a brand new stadium there that is going to be state of the art and beautiful and all of those things. And I think that might be maybe a bit of a draw over to Northwestern. And Chicago obviously is a draw, I would imagine. It has to be. I don't know how you don't use that in your pitch. And I don't know how they do their recruiting and all that. I can tell you from a specialist standpoint, they suck at communication. I can tell you that much. But other than that, I don't
sour grapes at all, though, right?
schools, the kid wanted to go to or at least explore, and they, like nothing, like crickets. Yeah. So they have a very narrowed base of guys that they can go after. Obviously, they're not going to compromise their academics for athletics. Okay, totally understand that. And I just don't know that they put enough emphasis on it. But again, brand new stadium is being built. So there is some emphasis from, a stadium, an indoor facility, like they have pretty good facilities, to be perfectly honest. They just need to lean into that a little bit more, I think.
And look, I think that what all those private institutions at this point have to decide is, are you in on NIL or not? Because that's like, when you look at Stanford's athletics program, like their baseball team just went to the College World Series a couple of years ago, and they're one of the worst teams in, the ACC right now. Obviously, new conference, their first year in the ACC, but like Stanford has been behind in terms of NIL. Northwestern is nowhere near the top in terms of NIL. SMU, another private institution, like their alumni, remember when SMU decided they were going to the ACC and they said, you know what? We don't need to take the TV payout for a few years because we've got an alumni base that's going to prop us up. Well, I guarantee you Northwestern and Stanford both have alumni bases with that kind of money as well. Are you going to go in on it or not? Because, I mean, ultimately, that's what's going to sink or swim programs like that, especially from a college football standpoint. I mean, Northwestern is taking the paychecks from Fox and all the, NBC and CBS and, the TV revenue, just like everybody else. What are you going to do with it? You're right. I mean, they've got a nice facility. You're in Chicago and all that kind of stuff, but are you jumping in with both feet or not? I think that's the question that all those schools have to answer at this point.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's going to be, they could, but that, again, that's a decision that they're going to have to make on their own and decide what the priorities are. You know what I mean? But there obviously is some priority going on. I just want to throw this up here because that's their new stadium.
I was going to say, I saw a second Vince D'Addario popping into the backside of the room. I was wondering what was going on.
It was me. I mean, that's a legit stadium. You know what I mean? This is something that should bring in recruits. And it's right on the lake. So it's beautiful. You can see the city in the background. So, I mean, that's going to be a beautiful stadium. So if they want to lean into football, they shouldn't have much of an issue, in my opinion. Again, they're going to have their, roadblocks because of academics and things like that. But again, there are other Notre Dame, for example, there are other schools that have those roadblocks that are somehow successful. So they just have to make a decision on which route that they want to go.
We talked a lot of USC football, obviously, yesterday with RJ Abatia joining us. And Justin wants to know, when do we anticipate we'll hear the fate of the SC rivalry? The 2027 season isn't far off from a scheduling standpoint.
I would say if we could predict when scheduling things were going to come out and be announced, then holy cow, I'd be hitting the lottery because you just never know when you're going to get an announcement from Notre Dame when it comes to this kind of stuff.
We talk forever about the NBC contract, the TV contract. We talk forever about Under Armour and the shoe contract, the apparel contract and the whole thing.
Right.
And then they both got done relatively within, relative amount of time to each other. And now it's like, well, you don't talk about that again until you start getting closer to the end. It's just like, You just never know. I mean, the good thing is there is still time. You still have this year and next year. So it's not done yet. And as I said yesterday, and someone posted on the YouTube comments, well, if you want to keep playing USC, join the Big Ten. And then that same person said something to the effect of, if you lose 2 games, you're not going to make the playoffs. Well, that's completely wrong, because just
100% wrong with the 16-team playoff.
Look at the 2 lost teams that made the playoff last year with a 12-team format. And when it, as I said on the show yesterday, when it expands to 16, you can easily absorb 2 losses, and in some cases 3, depending on who you beat and who you lost to. And that's what, like, even USC, if USC goes 10-2, they're most likely going to be one of the 4 teams, one of the 4 teams from the Big Ten that gets into the playoff. And it's same with Notre Dame. They don't have to join the Big Ten. Neither one of them, that's not even a factor. As I said, from USC standpoint, if they've been thinking for the last year or so, because that's about the time that these conversations started popping up, the Lincoln Riley comments and all that kind of stuff. If they've been thinking that, well, it's too much to keep Notre Dame on the schedule and also playing the Big Ten with what they're going to face in the Big Ten. Well, with the expansion of the playoff to 16, I don't think that needs to be a concern anymore. And we're going to talk about, we're going to talk in rapid fire. We're going to look at USC's schedule and do our latest prediction of the over-under win total for USC. But what their schedule is this year is, it's a Big Ten schedule plus Notre Dame. They've got some powder puffs at the front of their schedule. I think Georgia Southern, is one of their non-conference games. Missouri State is a non-conference game. And then they start conference play with Purdue. I mean, they should easily be 3-0. And, the schedule that they've got this year in any given year, even with Notre Dame on it, is not going to be, an extremely high degree of difficulty.
Correct.
They're going to have a couple Big Ten teams plus Notre Dame. So if they want to keep Notre Dame on the schedule, they can, and also feel like even if they lose 2 games, they've got a good shot of making it into the college football playoff.
I think they're going to take, because of the 16-team expansion in the playoff, I really do think that USC would take even more smoke, if that's apparently the term everybody wants to use. I think they would take even more smoke for canceling the rivalry, because Notre Dame will make it very clear who canceled it. That's not going to be a secret.
Yeah.
Because Notre Dame's not going to cancel that game. There's no way. I don't see the benefit to USC by canceling this game. I don't.
I don't either.
You're guaranteed to fill the stadium when Notre Dame comes to town. You're already making, cross-continental trips for the Big Ten and everything else, so that shouldn't be an issue. I don't understand what the benefit would be of dropping Notre Dame. It's all about money. It's all about money, right? You make more money if you play Notre Dame. Period.
Michael says it's going away. DJ says there's no way it's going away. So, I mean, again, there's smoke right now, but I think that there's smoke because of the fact that we're only a little bit more than a year realistically removed from a 4-team college football playoff that expanded to 12 last year. And again, now, speaking of smoke, all the smoke, I guess it would be, is it white smoke or is it black smoke? I don't know. But all the smoke is pointing at a 16-team college football playoff field. So again, if you're USC, okay, maybe when it's a 12-team field, you're not feeling that comfortable about having Notre Dame. But when you add 4 more spots, again, any team that only loses 2 games is going to be in the thick of a college football playoff berth going forward with 16 teams in the field.
No question. No question. Yep.
Any Power 4 team, I guess.
It's wide open at that point. I mean, it's absolutely wide open, especially if you're a brand. I mean, let's be honest, because they're going to, just like we talked about before, if they're going to go to the 16 team and you want to guarantee, 4 to the SEC and 4 to the Big Ten and all of these different things, then why does the game with Notre Dame even matter? Because if USC ends up as the 3rd or 4th place Big Ten team and they go by Big Ten rankings, you're going to get in anyway. The Notre Dame game is basically meaningless, and it's just there to make money. So why would you not do that?
Yeah. I mean, they took, like they had LSU on the schedule last year, and that's where the conversation came up with Lincoln Riley. They're not doing that again. Again, they're starting with Missouri State and Georgia Southern. So, like, if you look at what they're doing with their schedule this year, Missouri State, Georgia Southern, then you got your Big Ten teams, Purdue, Michigan State, Illinois. Illinois is going to be good. Michigan should be better than last year. Notre Dame, of course, is going to be good. Nebraska should be better than last year. Northwestern, Iowa, Oregon, UCLA. I mean, the biggest question is what RJ talked about yesterday. Can they build the team basically in the blueprint that Notre Dame has, and that's offensive line, defensive line? Like, can they be a lot more physical in the trenches than they were last year? Because, like, I don't see them beating Michigan this year if they can't be more physical than what they were last year.
I mean, look, I don't know that Michigan is going to be all that much better than they were last year. They'll be better than they were last year. But yeah, from a physicality standpoint, like, you bring that LA swagger, that doesn't do a whole lot when you play a team like Ohio State or Michigan or Notre Dame, a team that's going to punch you in the mouth, because USC has historically, at least I'll say this, at least in the last 20 years, they just don't do well when somebody punches them in the mouth. You know what I mean? They just don't. Right. They're a finesse team, and the Big Ten is punch you in the mouth football. So they're going to have to remake themselves if they want to.
Well, look, and even in their losses last year, they were competitive in their losses, including to Notre Dame, a team that obviously went to the national championship game. But the difference is they just aren't good enough up front right now. Like between their lines of scrimmage, like they went out and got Bear Alexander a couple of years ago. That didn't do anything for them. Between their lines of scrimmage, their linebackers, like there's a long way that they have to go.
Agreed.
Christopher says if we lose USC, he'd like to add one of these 3 teams: Boston College, BYU, or Michigan State, with BC being an every year game. We talked a little about what we would want Notre Dame to do. What do you think about that?
Those aren't marquee enough for me, to be perfectly honest with you. I know Boston College is a rival. BYU is not a rival. I wouldn't mind having Michigan State back on the schedule. I don't know that I want them on the schedule every single year. I would be okay with them being in a rotation. And the rotation of all 3 of these is not terrible.
Yeah.
I would not want BC every year. That doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't.
Like teams that I think you could easily rotate on and on. One, Boston College is part of the ACC deal, so you're going to get them. Like at least periodically, you're going to get them. Like Michigan State, Purdue, Michigan, and we've talked about Ohio State before. I wouldn't mind seeing some kind of regular rotation to have them on the schedule. I don't want Purdue every year. I don't want Michigan State every year. Like Michigan and Ohio State are the 2 that I would like to see with more frequency. But like I said yesterday, if you lose USC, you still need to get yourself into Los Angeles every couple of years.
Right.
And so that's why my first call would be to UCLA. That would get UCLA a ton of national exposure that they, don't otherwise get.
Sure.
Like typically the most publicized UCLA game is USC. And if one of the teams is bad, obviously that's not going to get national TV. But if like you add Notre Dame, that's going to get you a lot different kind of exposure. So
absolutely. It's kind of like Moneyball, right? I'm not replacing USC with one school. I'm replacing them in the aggregate.
Yeah.
I want a rotation of good teams. I don't want a rotation of secondary teams. I'm sorry, Boston College and BYU, and right now Michigan State, they're secondary teams. That doesn't do enough for me right now. I think Michigan State is heading in the right direction, but they're not there yet.
Like, here's what I'd like. I also talked yesterday about like Shamrock Series, like playing at SoFi where the Rams and Chargers play. Like maybe you could do the every 3 to 4 years you could get out there, and do a Shamrock Series game in Los Angeles. I think that becomes a possibility if you're not playing at USC
Correct.
in the Coliseum every other year. Like, I would think that would actually become a priority for Notre Dame to try to get more Shamrock Series games out there, because that's an easy way to still be in that market and also not be tied to one team. You could bring in, you could even play like Boston College in LA, potentially, or something like that.
I think this is if USC is going to drop Notre Dame, which I am 1,000% against. Okay. And even if they aren't going to drop them, I think there's an opportunity out there to kind of reshape Notre Dame's scheduling model. You know what I mean? And I think DK actually brings up a decent point here. He said minimum one Florida team every year, minimum one Texas team every year. I don't have an issue with that, to be perfectly honest with you. I think an ideal schedule for Notre Dame would be something along the lines of, okay, you want to get down to Florida once or have a Florida team come to you. You want to get down to Texas or have a Texas team come to you. You want to be on the West Coast or have a West Coast team come to you. You want to have an SEC team on there. You want to have at least one Big Ten team on there. Mm-hmm. And then obviously you have your ACC affiliation. And then you have a MAC school or two. Like, I think you can put together a model that you kind of cherry pick, and it leaves wide open some different things that you would want to do. You know what I mean? So there's an opportunity here with the changing landscape of college football to really set yourself up, because like you said, with the 16-team playoff, you got a little bit of wiggle room, in my opinion. You don't have to be perfect every single year just to make it into the playoff.
Exactly.
That you've got some wiggle room. So I think you can go out there and you can get some names and some locations that you want to be in from recruiting and, those kinds of different things. I think if they pull from that model, I think that's a good model to pull from.
I would agree with that. CNAP, when was the last time we had this much confidence in the football program?
Oh man, it's been a bit. I always have confidence in Notre Dame and all that, even when the last regime was here. Sometimes it was cautious optimism, but there was always optimism. There was always confidence, right? The confidence level is pretty high. And not necessarily just going into 25, but like 25 and beyond, I think is a good way to put it. Like, I think, let's say CJ Carr is the starting quarterback. I'm excited about what his ceiling could be, but I'm even more excited about what the roster looks like around him. And as you let that roster mature a little bit more and you let your quarterback mature a little bit more and all of that, so you're talking 25, 26, and then beyond, I'm very confident in the direction of Notre Dame football right now and the present, right? I think they can make a run in the present, but just the direction of Notre Dame and the recruiting and the coaching and all of those, I guess my confidence is probably at an all-time high.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had this much unbridled enthusiasm,
right?
Like, it really honestly would have to go back to the early 90s, the Lou Holtz years, like when you knew that those teams were going to be in the national championship picture every year.
Yeah,
because
for me, that's like when I first started becoming a fan, and so I'm not used to that kind of a feeling on a regular basis.
Right. And to Michael's point, he said Davey, Ty, and Weiss, the three of them almost killed this whole thing off. And it's like Weiss was the first one to have back-to-back good seasons, 05 and 06. But Davey and Willingham, it's like you think you're building up, and then all of a sudden you got the rug pulled out from under. It's like Lucy and Charlie Brown. You got the football pulled out from underneath you, and the next thing you know, you're doing backwards somersaults and you're landed on your head, and that's what those years seem like. And then obviously even Weiss after 05 and 06, you're starting to feel pretty good. Yeah. And then the whole thing totally bottoms out in 2007.
Well, and it's funny because, we were obviously covering the team back then, and you saw the talent, and it was exciting to watch and all of those different things, right? We were also very consumed with the outcomes and with the product that was on the field. And we didn't, I shouldn't say we, I will say I didn't pay enough attention to what was happening at practice or lack thereof, with the development piece and, some things like that.
And even those are things that even I don't think you probably could see.
Right.
Like even
that's fair. That's fair.
When we were able to get out there.
Because if you did pay closer attention, you probably could have seen it was kind of a house of cards. You know what I mean? And that's what ended up happening.
And that's why, like, there's every reason to have this much excitement and, / confidence about the program because of what you saw last year, because it's not like they had like the perfect season where they went all the way through the season with nobody hurt. You had all your starters throughout. You had multiple guys on the offensive line hurt. You had, starters on the offensive line go out during the college football playoff. You had other guys get hurt, like key guys, like Riley Mills gets hurt in the first playoff game. Howard Cross was banged up for a while. You know what I mean? Like two of your top defensive ends were obviously lost for the entire season. So like we didn't even see really the full like best of Notre Dame last year, and they still went all the way to the national championship game. So
this is true.
And so like when you look at both the combination of the recruiting, the coaching, and the player development, to your point, like that's obviously where Brian Kelly, he was a more consistent recruiter than the coaches who came before him. He was also a much more consistent developer of the roster. And that's the important thing. And Marcus Freeman, even for a young coach, because of the fact that he has worked for guys like Luke Fickell and Brian Kelly, two guys who I think are, like you cannot like Brian Kelly and still say, the guy knows how to develop the roster.
100%.
Right. That was the biggest reason he was able to make Notre Dame into a consistent winner the way he was in his time at Notre Dame.
100%. And you have to give him all the flowers for what he was able to do at Notre Dame. It's just there was a ceiling there, and the excuses about the ceiling got to be a lot. That's why I think people obviously aren't happy with the last regime. There was a ceiling there, but everything under the ceiling was done very well. I mean, he brought Notre Dame back to a position where a guy like Marcus Freeman could come in and then take them to the next level. So I will give him all the credit in the world for that, no doubt.
Do you remember when you first became a Notre Dame fan? I am Tenzin, the son of Aang, asks.
I do. It was that 93 season. I was 12 years old, and my family wasn't like big into sports. I was, and I lived around Notre Dame, but that Florida State, Notre Dame game was just kind of the catalyst to get me excited. And like, then they were in the national title hunt, as you had mentioned, right? Like that was like, okay, Notre Dame can win this thing. Like, this is great. Like, I don't remember 88. I was 7. Like, I don't remember that. And I didn't have a dad who was like, propping me up in front of the television, telling me to watch, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I had to find it myself. And so 93 was really the first season where I was all in.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a specific time. I just kind of grew up, with an Irish Catholic grandpa and all that kind of stuff. And, like his high school mascot was actually the Irish, so like he would talk about that, but that obviously, translated into Notre Dame and all that kind of stuff. And so like, obviously back then, especially in the 70s, but even into the 80s, I'd say the fandom grew in the 80s as like cable television started to rise, and you had more, because like the 70s in our household was like the pure, 3 networks and PBS.
Oh yeah, right. Yep.
So, but like in the 80s, as more games were on TV,
right?
That's kind of when it started to grow, and like hit up, like memories of Tim Brown obviously winning the Heisman in '87, and then like the national championship season. I remember following that as much as I could, and then like Rocket and all that kind of stuff. Those were like the peak, and that was like teenage and even into early 20s for me. But that was when it really started peak, just because there was more exposure back then.
Oh, 100%. And me growing up, obviously we had a few more channel options, but cable was still in its infancy. I still remember when I was growing up in the 80s, like we still had the big wooden TV, you know what I mean? The big piece of furniture.
That's like the big wooden TV and then you set the new TV on top of the big wooden TV. That was what my grandpa's basement was like. So
right. I remember the big wooden TV, and I remember
console.
Yes,
yeah.
I remember playing remote for my family. Hey, go change the channel. Like I vividly remember that. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, it was. I had to find it myself. Even though I lived in Elkhart, which is not that far from Notre Dame, I still had to find kind of Notre Dame myself.
Milton fan chiming in. Haven't seen him in the chat in a while. He said, which player and assistant coach has benefited the program the most in the last 20 years? This is a tough one.
Well,
maybe not.
I'll say Marcus Freeman. He was an assistant, and I think he's benefited the team the most up to this point in the last 20 years. So I'll say Marcus Freeman for the coach. Maybe that's cheating. That's definitely a possibility. Player is tough, man, because there are so many different avenues that you can go.
I know
with this, man, benefited the program. So not the program benefiting them, but them benefiting the program. I mean,
seeing what's tough about a guy like Riley Leonard is he was only here for 1 year,
right.
So do you give him more credence because they did go to a national championship game and everything else? I think Brady Quinn is a pretty good answer, DK. And when you throw in the fact that he didn't invent NIL, but he essentially created NIL for Notre Dame.
He did.
He
definitely did. You could look at,
and it was a little bit out of spite. I remember we played some of the sound bites from his radio show a while back. He was, ticked off, and he was like, "We're going to get this NIL firing," and they hit the ground running.
And I love that. I love that he's still involved. You know what I mean? People are saying, I saw somebody say Manti. I think, that's a good one. It just sucks the way it kind of ended. That kind of a deal, but that's not his fault. I don't blame him for that in any way. But he was a generational player at Notre Dame, obviously. That was early in the 20 years, obviously, as well. That's great. It's the day after he invented the internet. I mean, you can say that. You can say Freeman is a cheating answer, and that's fine. But I would also.
What? I'm going to go with BK though, because
look at you. You just.
I mean, full credit.
I know
to what Marcus Freeman has done, but we just got done talking about all those ups and downs of the Davey, Willingham, Weiss era, and without Brian Kelly in the 12 years that, again, I'm not going to sit here and trumpet Brian Kelly, but what I'm saying is those 12 years that they needed Brian Kelly to both stabilize the program, bring in the kind of development that he did, and also, push some buttons over there at Notre Dame, in terms of the facilities and the modernization of the program to literally bring Notre Dame into a new century, because they were lagging behind when Brian Kelly got here. And I get it. He went out whining about chefs and all that kind of stuff. Okay. That's different. But, the Irish Athletic Center, which is standing there right now, doesn't get built if Brian Kelly wasn't there. And a lot of other things weren't going to happen if Brian Kelly wasn't there. And so Marcus Freeman, he's like the, what is it? We didn't invent it. We made it better. That's Marcus Freeman. Kelly stabilized it. Let's not forget, he obviously took him to a national championship game and 2 college football playoff appearances when it was just a 4-team field. So I think Brian Kelly ultimately, especially because he was here, 4 times longer than Marcus Freeman has been at this point.
Yeah.
I think you have to give him full credit for bringing the program up to where it needed to be. But let's be honest, for Notre Dame to truly now have a chance to be competitive and win national championships, you needed Brian Kelly to leave and for Marcus Freeman to take the program over, because there's no question, for as much of what Brian Kelly did, Marcus Freeman has taken it to another level in the 3 short years that he's been in charge.
Agreed. No, totally agree. I mean, again, people aren't going to like the fact that we give Brian Kelly credit, but you have to. If you want to be honest with yourself, you can not like him as a person, and you can not like the way he left, and you can not like the fact that he was making all the excuses, and those are all fair things. But you also have to give him credit for what he was able to do and where he was able to take Notre Dame. Because you're absolutely right. I do think Charlie Weiss kind of started, like he's the one that got the goog, you know what I mean, to kind of finished off, right?
Willingham, the goog was actually being constructed when they fired Willingham.
There you go.
So, yeah.
So, I mean,
Weiss got the benefits of that, right away by having that building.
And so you can give credit where credit is due, you know what I mean? So I don't disagree with that at all.
You'll have to excuse me. I don't know what BASF means. Do you know what it means?
I not.
I don't either. Sorry. Do we think Marcus Freeman has any characteristics similar to Lou that made his teams play to championship pedigree?
Well, he's a leader. And he's a guy that all the players respect and would run through a brick wall for. And I think, outside of X's and O's, and I think both guys are good with X's and O's and all of those different things. I wasn't around Lou enough to know his X's and O's, right? I knew he ran triple option on the offense and, all of those kinds of different things. And I know Marcus Freeman's a defensive guy. But what I know is when both of those guys talk, people listen. That's the biggest compliment and comparison that I can give. I've heard both speak in person. They are both mesmerizing as a speaker. And they command attention and they command respect. And I think that says a lot for who you want to be as a head coach.
I'll just agree with all of that. We actually are getting close to a little bit of a time limit here because Vince needs to be out on time. So I want to get a couple of these other questions. And after I went on that big spiel about Brian Kelly, I didn't look at the original question from Milton Fan closely enough. He asked which assistant coach it's made the most impact.
It's a great spiel, though. I appreciated it. I appreciate it.
So, yeah, it's Marcus Freeman.
Look, there could be, and I'm not going to belabor the point. There's a case to be made for Harry Heastan.
That was actually what I was going to say. Like, I think that you could, Harry Heastan would be in that conversation. Mike Mickens would be in that conversation.
Yeah.
Al Golden would even be in that conversation.
Agreed. Yeah.
So,
yep. Agreed.
All right. Anthony, thank you very much for the super chat. He said, except for mentioning Brian Kelly. Okay. Well, again, and I did it. I didn't even need to.
I know, right? See, you just love BK.
Where are we at with the confidence in the kicking game? Sure, worried about it right now, says Old Jarhead.
Well, you could be worried about. What have you seen, though? I mean, I don't think we've seen enough to either be worried or confident, to be perfectly honest with you. I have not broken down the film of the Burnett kid. His stats were good coming into Notre Dame. I am going to take for a grain of salt, like the 1 or 2 kicks we saw in practice and then what we saw in the Blue Gold game. He missed one very badly. It was his first ever kick in Notre Dame Stadium in front of people. I'm going to go ahead and give him a pass on that because every other kick that he had in the Blue Gold game was spot on. So I'm willing to give a mulligan in a practice game. So, but again, I don't have enough evidence to say that I'm confident either. I'm just not overly worried about it right now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that like last spring, I think we're kind of in the same boat and things ultimately ended up working out okay if you didn't have the hip injury, during the season last year. But it feels like when the snapper, the holder, and the kicker get out there together in the summer and work on that operation, it feels like the last couple of years anyway, like that's when things have started clicking, once they figure out who's going to be the guy and, they just work, they're just able to rep that whole operation. Yeah. So like if I'm going scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably put it at a 6.5, 7 right now.
And I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And that's not a negative toward anything that's going on. It's just we haven't seen
just based on what we saw.
Yeah.
And I do ultimately think that it'll get better because it's a veteran kicker that they brought in.
Yeah. And they're going to continue to do that, by the way. So
right.
Get used to it.
Right. I am Tenzin wants to know when I realize Kansas State is far above KU.
Wow.
Funny you say this because it's actually the other way around, because I actually grew up.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
A fan and lived in Manhattan where Kansas State is as a youngster before we moved to Salina, another city in Kansas. But once I came to my senses after I grew up, I left behind my Wildcat fandom and then went to KU instead. So completely the other way around.
You're a turncoat.
That's right. Tell you what, there's a couple others that are sitting in here, and I don't want to completely disregard them. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to save them. If we have time, we'll do it at the end of rapid fire. But again, Vince is on a little bit of a time crunch.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that we leave enough room for rapid fire and get him out of here within the next half hour or so.
Yep.
So there are many important things that are going on in Vince land tonight.
Yes, agreed.
So with that, Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
I'm so ready for rapid fire. I've actually been looking forward to this one. We got some good stuff for you tonight.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips says the recently announced annual series between Notre Dame and Clemson does not count toward the 5 games the Irish must play annually against ACC teams each year.
This is a child-friendly show. And because I want to say it's BS, because you're playing an ACC team. Really, this is where you're gonna plant your flag, Jim, that Notre Dame is guaranteeing that they're gonna play and give you the best ACC matchup that you're gonna get every single year for 12 straight years,
and help your conference and your flag bearer for the conference.
And you're not gonna count that? I'm gonna make a prediction. It will count by the time they start playing this 12-game series. I do.
Well, now the ones, I don't think he specified this, but obviously the one, there were 3 or 4 Clemson games that were already on the schedule. Now those will count because that was part of, Jim Phillips is basically saying you will play who we tell you you're going to play.
Yeah. Jim,
and the rest don't count.
I just don't think Jim has the leverage that he thinks he does.
Well, he is the commissioner.
I know that. I know that. But I just think if you're giving me the option about who has more power in the grand scheme of things, is it Jim Phillips or is it Pete Bavacqua? I'm going to give Pete the edge.
Yeah,
just
they're
saying.
They're both sitting at the table negotiating those college football playoff contracts and everything else. I think from the Notre Dame perspective, it fits with what we've been talking about since last week and, earlier in this show and on yesterday's show as well regarding USC, because what have you got with USC? You've got this opponent you've been playing year in and year out, with the exception of 1 year for basically the last century in USC, but there's some uncertainty as to whether or not that is going to stay on the schedule. So from Notre Dame's perspective, it really feels like if there's a chance that game, the USC game is going to go away, it's not going to be on the schedule anymore. They have essentially filled that spot outside of the ACC agreement by having that extra game, that extra opponent on the schedule. So I do think it's a little bit odd that since Notre Dame and the ACC do have this scheduling agreement that's been in place for more than 10 years now, that Jim Phillips couldn't just say, well, hey, just plug that right in there. But I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see how this actually turns out. I don't know. I feel like somebody's putting the cart before the horse, but we'll see.
Joe said maybe because of the ESPN agreement. But again, all this does is in the years that the game is played at Clemson, all this does is give ESPN more great content to put on their air.
Exactly.
It does nothing but help everybody, the conference, Clemson, Notre Dame, ESPN, whichever TV partners happen to have it.
Right.
Fill in the blank. Notre Dame's offensive success this season is dependent upon blank.
CJ Carr. The quarterback position, I guess, is a better answer because we don't know who the starter is going to be. But I think it is dependent on the quarterback. And I know that that's kind of a cheating answer, but I have a lot of confidence in the offensive line. I have a lot of confidence in the running back room. Obviously, we just talked about that. The wide receiver room is very dependent on the quarterback. And so it's going to be dependent on the quarterback. How far can you go with a rookie quarterback who we think has a very high ceiling, but what is that ceiling going to be in 25? I think that's the biggest question mark for me right now is CJ. I mean, and I think I'm confident in it, but it's still a question mark because we haven't seen him play in any games of any meaning, right? So it's still, they're only going to go as far as CJ Carr is going to take them.
I think it's the logical answer. And, when I wrote the question, I mean, the first thing I said was, well, first I thought Jesse was going to be on the show today. So I thought Jesse would say the quarterback. And then with it being you, I figured, okay, he's going to say quarterback. I'm actually going with the offensive line because, it's very reasonable to put it, to say, look, you've got a first-time quarterback, as everyone around the country wants to point out. You're going to have a quarterback who's got no experience or, virtually no experience, in comparison to the one who transferred anyway. But I just feel like if the offensive line does its thing and plays up to what we think this offensive line should play up to, DK pass pro is his answer. And I think that's the biggest thing. If the offensive line does its thing, I've really got no concerns about CJ Carr, Kenny Minchie. The running game is going to fall into place. The whole thing, if as long as the offensive line does what a Notre Dame offensive line is supposed to do and plays to that level, then you can live with a couple rookie mistakes by whoever the quarterback ends up being. So I went to the success hinging more on the offensive line than the quarterback.
I can see that. I think this offense is put together and built very positively towards having a rookie quarterback. You know what I mean? Like it is a position that I think a quarterback can grow in, and I think a quarterback can be successful in because of the offensive line, because of the running game, because of the offensive coordinator. I think it's set up very positively for a rookie. So, I mean, I agree with you. I think the offensive line is going to be really good. I really do. But you're right. If they're not good, then they're really in trouble.
And look, there's still enough questions.
Sure.
Right? Because we don't know who's going to play at what position, all that different stuff. If you look at the potential for the starting five, I mean, again, there's a reason that three guys who started, a decent amount of games last year for Notre Dame all transferred to other schools. It's because of the talent that was coming up behind them. Fill in the blank. Notre Dame's defensive success this season is dependent upon blank.
This is so hard because there's a couple different ways I wanted to go with this. I could have gone the Chris Ash route. Okay. New DC, what's that going to look like? What's the play calling going to look like? All of that. But I do, and again, I don't know that this is just a layup answer, but I do think it's the defensive line. I think I have a lot of confidence in the defensive line, but there's still question marks there from a health standpoint for, all of those different things. I think if the defensive line is as dominant as they can be, this defense is going to be really good. And I think regardless of Chris Ash, and I don't mean that in a negative way towards Chris Ash, I just think it's really easy to call plays when you just got a bunch of dudes flying all over the place. You know what I mean? We've all been in a situation as a coach where it don't matter what you dial up because you got a bunch of dudes out there doing their thing and they're going to execute what you give them. They're going to be successful. So if the defensive line is very, very good, which I think they could be, I think that's what it's going to rest on.
So Scott and I are on the same page on this. He says defensive success is Chris Ash's game planning and play calling. And I would add in adjustments as well, because those were all, with some exceptions, things that Al Golden excelled in. I mean, we all look back at that national championship game and the USC game at the Coliseum a couple years ago and go, huh? What exactly happened there, Al? But I mean, this is the biggest X factor. It's the biggest unknown. Chris Ash coming back to college football, being a defensive coordinator for the first time in a few years. We don't know how he's going to call games. We don't know what his game plan for a game is going to look like. We don't know, Al Golden was very good at knowing when to dial up pressures and where to bring them from and doing all those different things. It was an NFL defense that really confused quarterbacks a lot of the time. And we don't know what that's going to look like with Chris Ash. You know, the players are obviously the same. The scheme is largely going to be the same, but it's I think a lot of it's going to come down to just how Chris Ash game plans and calls things on Saturdays. Like that's going to be, I think, the biggest thing that ultimately determines Notre Dame's success this season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I like I said, I was on the fence between Chris Ash and the defensive line, and
I'm glad we picked two different answers.
Me too,
because Ash was mine all along. So
hey, see, and you thought I was going to go there when I said it, but it went a different way. Again, if he's got a bunch of dudes running around, I think they're going to be okay.
Yes. Yep. Mark,
I knew
Safety
that was going to come up.
Ohio State.
As soon as you said he picks the great moments to blitz and from what angle, I was like, somebody's going to bring up Ohio State. I know it's coming. I know it. And there, right. Mark, thank you, buddy.
But you know what? Lesson learned, because he didn't do that again after that.
Yes, right? 100%.
That was game one. So lesson learned. Okay, so we're going to play everybody's favorite game. Guess the over-under season win total. Today's team is Southern Cal, so we're going to take a look at the Trojans' schedule for the upcoming season, and then we're going to take a guess at what their over-under win total is on FanDuel. Now, obviously, if you're watching the show and you're in the chat, don't put up, like if you know the number, don't put it up. You can put your guesses up as to what you think it's going to be, but don't tell us the actual answer, because that takes away the fun, obviously.
It does.
I know. So here's USC's schedule. They start off with Missouri State, and then they have Georgia Southern, really challenging themselves right out of the gate in those first two games. And then they travel to Purdue. They actually get to come to Indiana twice this season, because they go to Purdue September 13th.
Good point.
Then September 20th, they host Michigan State. September 27th, at Illinois, team that a lot of people are expecting big things from this season. October 11th, they host Michigan. And then the next week, they come to Notre Dame. November 1st, after a bye week after the Notre Dame game, they go to Nebraska. Then they host Northwestern. They host Iowa. They travel to Oregon. And then they close out the regular season hosting UCLA in the Coliseum. So there's USC's schedule for the season, Vince. What do you think FanDuel is going to have their over-under win total set at?
So this is the first time I'm going to go against my gut.
Okay.
My gut was 8.5. I'm going to say it's at 9.5. I know. I wanted to say like 9, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to be a half. 8.5 is my gut. So that's probably what it's going to be. But I feel like there's a couple of toss-up games that maybe I fell on USC's side a little bit. So I'm going to go 9.5. I would take the under, but I'm going to go 9.5. What say you?
Got a pretty good range here. DK is 7.5. DJ 8.5. Sly Fox says 7.5. Joe says 9.5. I think it's either you guys are all higher than me. I think it's going to be 7.5 or 8.5.
God, I hope so.
I think that 9.5 is too high for a team that won 6 games in the regular season last year.
Chad Bowden's got friends in Vegas, man.
I know. Let me see. So you're going 9.5.
I'm going to go 9. I've been on fire with this game.
You have.
And my gut says 8.5. I should go 8.5, but I'm going to go 9.5.
I'm still debating. I'm trying to get, where is it? I'm trying to get to the page without looking at the number. Man. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 is 8. Man. I'm going to go 8.5.
Oh, you're going to do it.
Yes.
You're taking the number that I would have taken. Okay.
I'm going to go 8.5, and I'm leaning, gosh, again, I'm struggling with whether I should just be going 7.5 instead of the 8.5. So I'm going to go 8.5 though. You got 9.5. Okay, here it is. Are you locked in? I haven't looked yet.
I'm locked.
Okay, you've got 9.5. I've got 8.5. The answer is 7.5.
Oh no, I was way too high.
Man,
you should have gone with your gut, Stars. 7.5. They do not believe in the Trojans.
No.
And I have to say, good for you, Vegas. Good for you. Oh, that I've never been so happy to be wrong. I'm good. I'm good.
7.5.
Man.
Vegas, 0 love for the Trojans.
Wow. Okay. I would you take the over or the under at 7.5, Sean Stiers?
Art says easy money over.
I don't think it's easy money.
I don't think it's easy money. I would probably go over on the 7.5. Like, especially if you're thinking 9.5, then you've got to take the over.
I'm taking the over,
on
yes.
that.
Yeah, I'm taking the over.
But I mean, here's what I'm looking at. Because I know that, like, it's hard for you because you'll never give Michigan any love. But I don't think they beat Michigan. I think Michigan, like, they'll be better at quarterback this year. And I mean, that was the biggest issue that they had last year. Now, they lost some NFL talent. But again, like, I don't think they're going to be able to take the punch in the mouth that Michigan's going to give them. Ditto with Illinois. Like, this is the stretch that I'm looking at. Illinois, at Illinois, Michigan, at Notre Dame, at Nebraska. That's 4 weeks in a row, or 4 games in a row, because they have the bye in there as well. Iowa, Iowa's offense is not great. But again, like, can they be physical enough to play with Iowa? Iowa's, and then they go to Oregon as well. Like,
so here's my thought process on this whole thing, right?
Okay.
We're not going to belabor it, but here's my thought process. They're going to be 3-0 because they're going to beat Missouri State. They're going to beat Georgia Southern. They're probably going to be able to beat Purdue on the road.
Yeah.
Okay. I think they win 1 of 2 between Michigan State and Illinois. Okay. One of 2. So that's 4 wins.
I don't think they're beating Illinois.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong about Illinois, but
and that's fine. I think they're going to win one or the other. Like, yeah, I got
you.
You know what I mean? So if it's Illinois, great. Then they're going to, beat Michigan State, which I don't think is a huge stretch, right? So that's 4 wins. I think Michigan USC is a toss-up because it's at USC. Okay, so that's like a half a game, maybe, depending. I don't know what to think. I think they're going to beat Northwestern. That's 5. I think they beat Iowa because it's at USC. That's 6. I think they beat UCLA. That's 7. And then I think Nebraska and Michigan are toss-ups. Yeah. So I only need 1 more win to get the over.
Sure.
So that you know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yep.
I think they lose to Oregon. I think they lose to Notre Dame. Those are guaranteed losses to me. So yeah, I would take the over. I wouldn't say it's easy money, but I would take the over.
I would take the over as well. I'm fairly comfortable in 8, but I'm just mad at myself because 7.5 is the first number that came to mind. And then maybe it's because you were talking so high about 9.5. Blame Vince.
Wouldn't be the first.
Nope. So the full NFL schedule is going to be released tonight, but we got more of the marquee games released today. Kansas City Chiefs, Dallas Cowboys, Thanksgiving Day, scale of 1 to 10. How much do you like it?
I'm so over the Chiefs, if I'm being honest. I am obviously in a place where the Cowboys are always going to be on Thanksgiving, and that's awesome. Give me somebody else besides the Chiefs. So I'm on like a 3. I want to see it. Man,
it's amazing to me, like how much you've come. Like, not that you were ever like riding high on the Chiefs, but you just can't stand.
They annoy me. And it's not even their fault. It's the media's fault. Like, I'm overstimulated when it comes to the Chiefs. That's what it is. It's too much. It's the Taylor Swift effect. It's, Travis Kelce and the Kelce brothers and their podcast and all that. And it's Mahomes and his headband and I'm done. I'm over it. I've been saturated with it. I'm done with the Chiefs, and Travis can retire any minute.
So this is a 1 for me because
nice, even less.
I just
a hard time, and it's less for you.
Like you can put any team up against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day, and I guess it was the Giants last year. And that was I'm trying to remember. That felt like it was competitive into the second half, but I don't want to be tortured on Thanksgiving Day. I just want to be like another normal human being.
Yeah.
Eat my turkey, stuff myself, and actually enjoy watching the game. So I don't need it to be the Kansas City Chiefs. The Cowboys are always going to play on Thanksgiving. I don't need it to be the Chiefs. I don't need it to be a good team. I just need it to be a team. Like, give me that boring ho-hum Michael Hahn's New York Giants last year. Yeah, that's right. 2 horrible teams by the time Thanksgiving rolled around last year. You're absolutely right. So I don't like the fact that they're playing. I would rather just have this be a Sunday night game or a Monday night game or even a 4:30 game at some point. But the NFL is going to torture me and every other Cowboys fan on Thanksgiving from now through eternity. Well, speaking of which, Vince, the Chiefs have already, I guess I know the answer to this. Now, I need you to step outside yourself
all right,
to answer this next question, okay? Chiefs were already announced as a Christmas Day game against the Broncos. That prompted former quarterback Chase Daniel to say the Chiefs are the new America's team. You buying or selling this?
Chase Daniel needs to stick to being a backup quarterback. Made a lot of money doing it, and I praise him in every way for doing that. You have no idea what fans think, Chase. And I am not taking away the moniker of America's team from the Cowboys. They are the media's team. That's it. They're not America's team. And I can tell you right now, the eyeballs will go off of the Chiefs the second that Travis Kelce leaves the team and takes his girlfriend with him. Nobody's going to give a crap anymore as far as America is concerned.
No one's going to care about the team with the best quarterback in the NFL.
I'm
that's
talking
been to
about
5 Super Bowls.
America.
You think America's
going
just
to care?
Going to stop watching because there's no more T Swift bump?
They're not going to. The eyeballs will not be what they are now. They will go away, and that's just what's going to happen. So they are not America's team. No, sir. I sell it.
I mean, I'm selling on America's team. They are a big ratings team, though, right now. And I think that they were even that probably before Taylor Swift, but the Swifties just pushed it over the top, like it's like you were never allowed to say anything bad about Taylor Swift or her music or anything else. And now you're not allowed to say anything bad about the Chiefs as far as they're concerned. Exactly. But it is interesting that the Chiefs and Cowboys are going to play each other on Thanksgiving, which obviously means they're both playing on Thanksgiving. But the Cowboys also have a Christmas Day game. And as we talked about earlier in the week, the Cowboys are playing the Eagles in that kickoff game to start the season. It really feels like when you look at what the NFL is doing on these days, Cowboys, Eagles, Super Bowl champs, big rival to kick off the season on a Thursday night. Chiefs, Cowboys on Thanksgiving, both the Chiefs and Cowboys playing on Christmas Day. Like, they are just like, we're not messing around with any other sport. Like, we're going to show you what the NFL can do in terms of viewership. Because, like,
they're not even hiding it.
Yeah. Like, we're just gonna come out guns a-blazing.
Yeah.
And we're getting big viewership numbers on these days. Because, like, I'll be shocked if the Cowboys and Chiefs don't get over 40 million on Thanksgiving.
Oh, I wouldn't be shocked at all. Like, they're the ones that are going to bring in the most eyeballs. There's no doubt about it. It'd be like if Notre Dame or if the NCAA had control over scheduling and they wanted to have marquee games on certain days, Thanksgiving, Christmas, it would be like Notre Dame and Alabama or Notre Dame and Georgia. Notre Dame would be involved every single time because they're going to get the most eyeballs of any other team. That's the Chiefs and the Cowboys right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not debating that. That's absolutely the truth. No doubt about it. And they're just going all in. It's not even a secret. Like hey, this is what we're doing, everybody. In case you were curious, we want all the eyeballs possible. So
here it
the
comes.
Cowboys.
Yep.
You know,
we're not going to make you sit through garbage on Christmas Day.
Right.
We're giving you it could end up being garbage in some cases, but at the very least, they're giving you, as of right now, two of the more marquee brands.
Screw your families. You guys don't get Christmas or Thanksgiving with your families.
Right. Santa can wait.
You know, let's turn on the Gladiator, and you guys can duke it out in front of America.
So I'm selling on the America's team thing, but at the same time, they bring a lot of eyeballs.
They absolutely bring a lot of eyeballs. There's no doubt about it.
Eyeballs. DK said, did Kelsey retire? He's looking chunky in recent pics. I haven't seen him in any recent pics.
Yeah, don't care.
The hair looks bad, man. The hair's.
He had a weird haircut going in the playoffs. Like I don't know, man. He just needed
had that part and the kind of
weird, like.
And then I saw pictures of him from 2 years ago. It was basically, like a nice, kind of buzzed, fade or whatever.
It's like that's got his
why
written all over.
You know why?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like,
dude, the Cowboys always get the middle time slot.
Yeah,
it's like 4:30
yeah.
Eastern, and then the Lions get the early game, Cowboys in the middle, and then whoever gets the night game afterwards. Oh, DK says the Lions got Thanksgiving and Christmas as well. Obviously, we know they get Thanksgiving. I hadn't seen the final Christmas game announced. So, who are they playing, DK? Do you know off the top of your head?
Oh yeah, you're asking him, DK. I don't know the answer. Dinner is served. Thank you. What? Yes. Bye. Are you live? Yes, I'm live.
No, you're just talking to yourself in a room downstairs.
Wouldn't be the first time, I guess.
So ESPN's announced that it's launching a direct-to-consumer streaming service this fall. It's wait for it, going to be called ESPN. Very novel. There, they went outside the box with that one.
Oh, that's great.
It's $30 a month or $300 a year for an annual plan. It'll provide everything that currently airs on ESPN, and at the launch, the service is going to offer 47,000 live events per year, plus on-demand replays, studio shows, and original programming. Again, it's basically, if it's on ESPN, ESPNU, ESPN2, any of those.
What about the plus?
You're going to get it in this. There was some conflicting stuff about whether you get, like, if you're already a plus subscriber, exactly how that works. So I can't.
Okay. I was just curious.
But if it airs on any of the ESPN channels, you get it.
Gotcha.
In this $30 a month, $300 a year. You're much more into the streaming stuff than me. So is this worth the price? $30 a month for ESPN streaming platform.
So in order to watch ESPN on a streaming platform right now, you have to have Dish or DirecTV or YouTube TV or whatever, some sort of a provider, right? I'll be honest with you. If that was the case for me, it's basically they're making it a la carte. They're making ESPN a la carte, essentially, right?
Exactly.
And
going after the young audience, the cord cutters who don't want to, have cable TV.
That would be this guy. I would do it. I would honestly. That is something that I would absolutely consider doing because most of the things I want to watch are either on network TV or ESPN when we're talking about live TV. And so that is something I would absolutely consider. I'm in for it because I don't want all those extra channels. I really don't. I don't use them. I don't watch them. It's a waste of money for me. So if I could narrow it down to ESPN and then all the network channels, I'm in. That's what I would do.
But where are you going to get your network channels?
The air.
Okay, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I have an antenna. I have an antenna that's on the top. Put it on the top of the house.
Yeah.
And you get like 30 channels. It's like 16.1, 16.2.
Okay.
Like, you get all kinds of. So like, I would do that. I would buy ESPN, and I would be done, and I would be fine with that because we still have Netflix, stuff like that. So from a live TV standpoint, I would absolutely do this.
DK said he. Where did it go? Canceled ESPN Plus last year. Too many blacked out games. Well, again, with this new, this is separate from ESPN Plus. This is an ESPN, like everything that airs on ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, anything that is on those cable channels. Now you can pay $30 a month and watch it stream. So there shouldn't be, any need for concern about, blackouts, stuff like that. Because now you're just streaming it. So it feels a little pricey to me, though. Like, because it's basically about twice the cost of like a Netflix or a Hulu or, whatever, where you're getting a lot more content. Now you're not getting live sports content, obviously. And that's the difference.
The $30 is a little steep per month.
Like honestly, like $20 feels like more the price point to me. But
so I'm horrible at math, so I'm getting out the old calculator here. 300 divided by 12, it's $25 a month, basically, if you pay all at once.
Yeah, if you do I mean, obviously you're saving $60,
right?
If you do the year subscription as opposed to per month.
Yeah.
So but at the same time, again, like you're in the cord cutting, like filter out all the excess.
Yeah.
Not going to watch all that different stuff.
I'm just saying. I mean, how many channels realistically do you watch? You watch NFL Network. I know that.
Yep.
Obviously, you watch the ESPN because you're watching
all
live
these
sports
based on
What else?
I watch a lot of like the HBO and the Showtimes and those kind of things.
Okay.
So that's where like for all the movies, the movie channels and all that kind of stuff. And then in our household, Food Network is watched on the daily, mostly by my daughter. And then TLC is a big popular channel in my household because of their reality.
I get that. That makes sense. And I probably wouldn't get a whole lot of support in my house. I'm talking about for me personally. So there are other people that live here. So
I'm going to throw this one in here real quick.
Yes.
From Mark. He says, as you are Top Gun obsessed, how would you staff up to play dogfight football? Offense versus defense simultaneously with 2 balls, 11, 22, or somewhere in between. Oh, so is he asking us like what players we would have do this?
I think so. That's a whole show all by itself, man.
I think we might actually just need to save that one
because I really don't understand what they were doing on the beach in Top Gun Maverick. To be perfectly honest,
defense at the same time, but I never really did grasp the scoring system myself. You're right. All right, I took a screenshot of that earlier, so I will say cool because. I don't know if Mark is still here. Does he basically want us like to pick Notre Dame guys and like plug them in, like who would play against who kind of thing?
I think so.
Man, that's tough. Chris is saying yes. All right. We're going to have to think on that. All right. So I screenshotted that and a couple others. So we will get to those on tomorrow's show. I saw that there was a women's basketball question in there.
Nice.
From Scott, and Chris also had a quarterback question in there as well. So I will tack them on to tomorrow because Vince has got to get himself rolling down the street. Yeah. As you heard, dinner is ready.
Hey, fingers crossed that there's some scholarship money coming Dylan's way tonight. Fingers crossed.
All right. Here we go. Make it happen. All right, great questions tonight in the mailbag, as always. Oh, how many safeties? I think he means running backs as opposed to ribs. But
I love
maybe you would have a rib out there.
That's like what you get when you win. You get some ribs.
Yep. All right, hit that like button, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.